Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Paulding County Planning Commission March session. If you would, at this time, if you have an audible device, please turn it off or to silent so it doesn't interrupt the proceedings of the meeting. Just to cover a few things, the Paulding County Planning Commission is a recommending body. We will hear applications that have been made to the Paulding County Community Development Office. Then we will ask questions of the applicant. We will ask questions of anybody else that may present themselves, and then also for the opposition or maybe people who have questions, comments, or concerns. 15 minutes is dedicated to both sides, those that would present on behalf of and those that would wish to speak in opposition or may have questions, comments, or concerns. That is a cumulative time, so if you are interested in speaking on a particular topic, please line up at the podium. Each person would be required to sign in, state your name, and you will address your comments to the chair being me, please. Make a recommendation and vote on that. That will be forwarded to the legal body, the legislative body that will make the final decision, which in this case in all applications would be the Paulding County Planning Commission. And just to be clear again, those will be forwarded to the session for this evening. No.
The actual next meeting of the Board of Commissioners, these application, your recommendation, the board would be forwarded to the April 9th, 2024 Board of Commissioner meeting back in this room at 2 p.m.
Okay. And as in all cases, both at this meeting and at the Board of Commissioners meeting on April 9th at 2 p.m., the applicant must be present for the application to even be considered.
That's right.
So, this time I would ask the Planning Commission if you've been able to review the minutes from the previous session of this body, and if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. If not, then I will entertain a motion regarding those minutes.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve by Mr. Steele, second by Ms. Fitzgerald. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0 and 1. I'm going to go ahead and ask Mr. Robinson if you would make any announcements regarding the prepared agenda.
Yes, and good afternoon, everyone. 2004 to 2024 01 SUP application by N1 Estates has officially withdrawn their application from consideration, and so that has been removed from the agenda today.
Well, furthermore, if there's anybody that wishes to participate in this public hearing, again, the rules are written out and are available on the table at the back of the room. Please take a copy at your leisure. We're going to go ahead and get started with the applications, and I will turn that back over to Mr. Robinson.
Thank you again. First application is 2024-09Z. It's an application by Andrea Alberga, requesting to rezone 20.92 acres from R2 Suburban Residential District to A1 Agricultural District for the intended use of floriculture, which is a flower farm. The property is located in land lots 336, 337, District 18, Section 2. It's located on the north side of Prickett Lane, and that is north of Gresham Road. It's in Commission Post 3. Staff has recommended approval with 6 printed stipulations, and the applicant is present, and we have noted no opposition on this application.
All right. If you would, please state your name.
My name is Andrea Alberga.
Thank you very much. Please address your comments to the chair in presenting your application.
Okay. So my presence today is to speak on behalf of my request to rezone the property on Prickett Lane from R2 to A1. It would be for our family home and a family farm. The farm would, in particular, we'd be specializing in flower farming. We'd also do produce at our farm, but that would be for us, so we grow our own food there. Our farm would operate by delivery. So flowers, you want to have them sold before they bloom, obviously, or even sometimes before they go into the ground. So most things would be delivered to florists. If we can get grocers, we would deliver to grocery stores as well. We also have in mind to do customer subscription agreements, and that basically means customers are signing up to receive flowers or bouquets at their doorstep every 2 to 3 weeks during blooming season. That's pretty much it. The only other question we got from planning was the hours of operation. As far as that, it would be our family home, so we didn't have in mind specific hours of operation, but if we did do things on occasion, like for instance, Valentine's Day, if people want to come out or guests want to come out by reservation to cut flowers and take it home, then that's fine. And we'd be fine with the 8 to 9 that was recommended in the stipulations, or even like Mother's Day as well. The last thing we had were the neighbors. We're happy to not have opposition. And then also having support from our future neighbors. We have someone to the south of us that was pleased with what we plan to do with the land. He let us know that he wouldn't be opposing it or anything like that. And then we have a Christmas tree farm that is on the west side of the property. And I've spoken to him, and he's given me resources to get started and stay started and things like that.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I will begin. So you're familiar with the 6 stipulations that have been recommended by staff, and you are okay with those, one of them being the time of
One of them being the
operation?
time, yes.
So you're okay with all 6?
I'm fine with all 6. I didn't understand the memo, and then the 60-foot right-of-way. Just needed clarification.
Well, I'll also take just a moment to commend you on reaching out to your neighbors. It seems like that's a seldom seen action in the part of rezonings that take place, but I do appreciate the fact that you did that.
Okay.
I'm going to open it up for questions to you from the Planning Commission, so if any of you have questions for the applicant, please state it. Questions?
I've got a question for you. So you say this is going to be more of a family farm and for, produce generated for your family and things, but you also said that there is a potential of a customer base, people being able to come in by reservation to be able to pick flowers and to things. What is your estimated daily use? Like, how many people do you feel that you're going to have traveling to your farm to participate in the activities that you have?
So being on occasion, so like let's say it's Valentine's Day and we've invited maybe 60 people or around there to come and cut flowers, and they would be at staggering points because it is also our home. So other than that, I mean, that's what I imagine as far as traffic on a day like that. On a special occasion.
Well, in conjunction with that, you've got people that are coming in, but you also said there was a possibility of deliveries to convenience, or not convenience, but to grocery stores and things of that nature. Is that something that, like, the part of the business where you're going to be making day-to-day deliveries, or is that going to be, seasonal? Are you going to go to, Walmart's? You're going to go to Kroger's? Is there like selection of areas that you're planning on going to?
Well, I would think more smaller grocers, if that's possible, or, smaller grocers than that. And it would be during a seasonal period, and we would be bringing it to them. We would be delivering it.
Do you currently do this type of business for a living?
No, I don't currently do it. I did grow up in Jamaica with my grandma, and she was the president of the Horticultural Society, and that's where the basis comes from.
So the daily activity is not really a business? Or,
the daily activities?
Yeah, like what he was asking with your daily trips, like you're not going to have daily visits or employees on site, correct?
No.
Okay, so it's just your family growing for yourself and potential sale to some wholesalers.
Exactly.
Okay.
And florists.
Are you going to be potting any of these plants?
Potting them, like if we have peonies, maybe selling a peony plant. I didn't have that in mind. I had mainly just thinking of the cut flower part of it, but I know that sometimes people want the actual plant to keep and continue to grow and things like that.
You will have green plants too, right? Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions from the Planning Commission to the applicant? Any questions from the Board of Commissioners to the applicant? Thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Again, just maybe I was remiss in the beginning, questions to the applicant or anybody that stands at the lectern do not count against either the people speaking for or against the opposition. The 15 minutes is not included in the question portion. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Is there anyone else here that would wish to speak on behalf of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to this application or may have questions? Hearing none, then I will entertain a motion with regard to application 2024-09-Z.
I make a motion to approve with the 6 listed stipulations.
Motion to approve from Mr. Aston with the 6 listed stipulations. Second from Ms. Fitzgerald. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0 and 1. Again, this will be forwarded to the April 9th meeting of the Board of Commissioners at 2 p.m. You will need to be present for it to be heard.
Do you want map or site plan?
Mr. Robinson.
Mr. Chairman, the next 2 applications coincide with each other with the rezoning and a special use permit. And if it's okay with the board, I would like to just read these and consider them at the same time, but knowing that each application would need to receive a separate vote.
Any objection to that? No?
Okay.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Application 2024-10Z, application by Old Castle Infrastructure, Inc., David M. Tulin, requesting to rezone 7.35 acres from R2 Suburban Residential District to I-1 Light Industrial District. This is to allow for a precast concrete facility. Property is located in land lots 1163, 1164, District 19, Section 3. It's on the east side of Mulberry Rock Road. The address to the site is 3003 Mulberry Rock Road. It's in Commission Post 2. Staff has recommended approval on this one with 6 printed stipulations. Also, application 2024-04 SUP is an application by Old Castle Infrastructure, Inc., David Tulin, requesting a special use permit concurrent to the prior zoning application 2024-10Z, and this to allow for a precast concrete facility to the existing quarry site. Property is located in the land lots 1149, 11 and 1148, 1149, 1160, 1160 through 1164, 218 through 220, District 19, Section 3. It's on the east side of Mulberry Rock Road. An address again is 3003 Mulberry Rock Road. It's in Commission Post 2. Staff has recommended approval and just wanted to note that we have, regarding the area, we've limited with stipulation number 1 to that the special use would just cover the 73 acre for the facility they're requesting. We've had calls and visits and correspondence with concerns and opposition, and I do believe we had also correspondence with recommended approval. The applicant is present.
All right. Before we get started with this, we do have one announcement. Commissioner up here, Mr. Leggett, will be recusing himself from consideration of both these applications, and we will leave it at that. So, is the applicant present? Yes. Please come forward, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
There we go. Good afternoon. I'm Brandon Bowen, 15 South Public Square, Cartersville, Georgia. Happy to be here with you again. I have the honor of representing Old Castle Infrastructure in this application. Is that better?
You may have to lean into the mic, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, I'll try that. Is that better? It says it's on. Just speak up a little bit. I'll try to speak up. I just didn't want it to seem as I was yelling at you.
No, you can speak up, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are presenting a precast concrete facility to be placed on the Mulberry Rock Road quarry that's currently in existence. And let me tell you a little bit about who Old Castle Infrastructure is. It is a part of a global company, but Old Castle Infrastructure Americas has facilities throughout Canada and America, some 70 facilities in America. And what it focuses on is making precast concrete products that go into the construction field. So what we're specifically talking about are culvert pipes, concrete pipes, box culverts, manholes, things of that nature. And they've got several facilities in Georgia and in the metro area, but they are looking to build what we're calling the flagship, their preeminent facility here in Paulding at the existing Mulberry Rock Road quarry. So let's see how to. Why do they want to do that? That's a complicated slide, but I'll tell you what it says is that where we live, and this is not something that's a surprise to you, is in the center of a growing area. Really, within 175 miles, we have 7 growing metropolitan statistical areas. So Northwest Georgia, North Alabama, the Eastern Tennessee, and South Carolina, all these areas are experiencing growth, have a need for construction materials, and this property is well suited to serve that area. In addition, we look at this next slide, and another complicated slide, but what it tells you is that our area is leading the country in construction starts, meaning there is a need for more construction materials, particularly when we're talking about road building and large projects. And so that is the why for this project, or why for this facility. Let's talk about why we want to do it at Mulberry Rock Road. That is a rendering of the proposed facility. That area in the back is not a proposed quarry, that's the existing quarry. It's been there since it was permitted by the county in the late 1980s, is my understanding. What we are looking to add is, if you look at the southern, or the bottom half of that picture, you see the large building. That's about a 5.5 acre building. That would be the precast facility. And then the things around on the ground, I'll show you a better image in a moment, but what that is outdoor storage of the precast concrete products. I want to point out to you, the first application you're looking at is the rezoning from one 7-acre tract to a light industrial tract. That is on the left side of that rendering. That is that dark gray square. That is a laydown area for product. So most of this acreage is already zoned light industrial, but that piece on that side is 7 acres of residential. And what we would like to do with that is make that a laydown area for product that doesn't get used that often, because it's not going to be very convenient to the site. So product that they expect to have on site for longer, they would put over there. To be clear, there's no processes or processing that is anticipated for that 7-acre tract that is currently residential. In fact, there's no processing that is proposed outside of the building that you can see on the facility. So this is a different rendering, and it's showing you that building, that 5.5 acre building, and the product. You can see box culverts in the front, concrete piping in the back. That's what we expect. You know, because this product is so large, they tend to make it and they hold it and they wait for a whole truckload of it to go out at one time. It's the kind of thing that can't be made and instantly be ready. So they have to build in advance and then ship it out once someone is ready for it. Here's a few more images. This is the inside of the facility. And, you know, I was a history major, not an engineer major. To me, it's a lot like baking, okay? On the left side, you can see that's an image of how they pour or cast a manhole. The concrete is mixed and then put in and then pulled out of a mold. In the center, that is how they dry cast concrete pipe. And so that is a machine that pours the pipe that in a way that it sets up and dries outside of them or without a mold. And then on the right, what you see are the machinery to make box culverts, you know, putting rebar in it to keep it strong. So those are the types of processes that will be done inside that building. And then if we go one more slide further, that's what the end product looks like. Obviously, concrete pipe on the left. In the center, you've got a manhole. You know, I'm used to, when we're driving around, we see the top of it, but that's the entirety of the manhole that they would be making here. And then on the right, you see a box culvert. That is what box culverts that are made here will look like. Incidentally, I will say, I don't think they are planning to build any box culverts that large. They don't have, but that is what they would look like. So those are the products that we're looking to put here. Why here? Well, the obvious reason is most of the input into this product is aggregate that comes from the quarry. If we plant the precast facility at the quarry, you don't have to drive that aggregate off-site to some other facility. That's where most of it goes, and that helps us keep truck travel, which is an important part of the cost of this product, down. The product is coming from the quarry that's already there straight into this facility. Some key facts. Again, I understand there was some concern that we're trying to make a 300-acre facility. The application says that because the lots involved together, their acreage adds up, but most of that is the existing quarry. We are only looking for the special use permit to cover that 70-acre site, and most of that will be exterior storage. The processes will all be within that 5.5 acre building. Let's see. A couple other key points. I know there's been some concerns about blasting. There's absolutely no blasting involved with this use. There's a quarry there now. There is blasting that's part of that quarry that's under state regulations and the county's permitting for the site back in the 80s. But the concrete facility would have no blasting involved with that. And in fact, it's not a very loud use at all. If you're inside the building, you can obviously hear the processes being done, but outside the building, it's virtually you can't hear it. And in fact, the main thing they would have outside the building would be equipment to move the product around, and they actually have gone to using electric equipment for that. So noise is not an issue, nor is dust an issue. All the travel ways, the service routes within the facility will all be paved to prevent that dust from being an issue. Let's see. One other concern I heard was that fear of rocks coming from trucks onto cars. No vehicle leaving this facility will have that issue because they're not shipping small rock product. I mean, the only thing they're shipping out would be the large precast concrete. That's not coming off of a truck. So that's not a concern to worry about either. I have with me today Alex Vigno sitting over here. He's a project manager for Old Castle. Also have Heath Wilson. He is the construction manager. The construction company on that is Brassfield Gorey. You're probably familiar with them.
You have 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. They built the Brave Stadium, so they know what they're doing. They've done 19 projects here locally in Paulding, including the WellStar Hospital that you have here. So they know what they're doing as well. They're here. I'm happy to try to answer any other questions that you might have, and we would just reserve the rest of our time if that would be acceptable.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and begin with what I generally ask, which is in relation to the stipulations recommended by staff. You have 6 in association with the rezoning request and 7 associated with the SUP. Since we're discussing both together, I would just ask, you've read those, you're familiar with them, and you agree or your client agrees to those?
Yes, we have reviewed them. We believe they are acceptable.
Okay. That's not to say that during discussion there wouldn't be potential other stipulations requested during the discussion period if this were to receive a positive vote. But right now, we're just going to begin with questions. So I'm going to open it up now to the Planning Commission members. If you have a question for the applicant.
I'll start, just to reiterate something. The existing quarry site is 323 acres. You have a 70-acre that you're asking for the special use for.
Correct.
But the site is 7 acres with a 5.5 acre size footprint for a building. Correct?
No, I can correct that, though. So there's a number of parcels that make this industrial site. There's one parcel that's 7 acres that is owned on the side, and it's currently zoned residential, not industrial.
And that's the one that is on for zoning to I-1, correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Robinson? And the
That's-
special use.
that's correct.
And the special use is asking for special use to cover 70 acres.
Which includes the 7.35 acres.
And is that 70 acres of the 323 or an additional to the 323?
No, it's within that 323.
Okay.
Plus that 7 acres.
Okay. And will Old Castle own just the 7 acres? Will they own any of it? Are they leasing all 70? How is the ownership there?
So the ownership the property is owned by a parent company. So Old Castle will own the facility. I think the parent company will own the land. And Mr. Vigno, if I've misstated that, please correct me.
Yes, the landowner.
If you're going to speak, please come to the lectern, sign in, state your name, and then address the question, please.
Excuse me, we really don't hear what everyone's saying. I'm sorry.
We've asked everybody to speak up to the degree that they can, so we will do the best. If you're standing at the lectern, you may have to talk loud.
Yes.
But nobody confer that to be that you're being yelled at, please.
Let's try this.
I usually speak loud enough. Just let me know if you cannot hear me. So yes, the parent company owns the 323 acres. The 72 acres will be leased for in an undefined amount, but probably like $1 a month or $1 a year to the parent company. That makes sense.
That does, and my question was just to kind of get an idea so that we make sure we're understanding that, and so that everyone out there understands that the rezoning is for the 7-acre parcel.
Yes.
The special use is for 70 acres of the 320 that are already there,
Yes.
under I-1.
And the 7 acre is already part of the 72. The 72 is already part of the 323.
Okay.
No additional acreage here.
Any other questions from the Planning Commission? I'm going to ask a couple myself, but I don't want to run ahead of anyone. Is the 70 acres that, or the area you're looking to build the building, beyond what is affected by the existing quarry activities that take place, the excavation, the blasting and such, you're not looking, no one is looking at expanding that into this other area, this 70 some odd acres?
No, this application is not asking to do anything in regards to the quarry.
This is more facility-related and laydown yard related.
That's correct. The only ask we're making is to allow the facility that will be the precast and then the laydown yard, which is part of is the only thing that would happen on that residential lot.
Well, the laydown yard requires the most area for your product.
Correct.
Correct. So the 5-acre building is going to take up the majority of your 7 acres, and your parking and your detention facility and whatnot. But I guess for Mr. Robinson, Mike can answer my question.
Let me
And-
pull up the site plan. Yeah.
The 70 is needed for what I understand for your.
Shrink that one down.
I can't get that extra hit. There we
It's
go.
just for your laydown to expand off of into another parcel.
Let's try this.
So, do you want to answer this, or do you want me
I'm
to?
gonna try and answer. Okay. If I can get this, this area over here, I know I'm kind of moving this. That's the 7 acres. This over here is already part of the 323 acre quarry site. This 7 acres they're asking to add to the quarry site, the 300. The special use is covering this area, which is approximately 70 to 73 acres. But that 7.35 is within also that 70 acre parcel, because they want to do special use. Does that help some?
does. Yep. And I think this also goes to your question. We're not asking for any of the quarry to be expanded into that 7 acres. That's not what we're asking for.
Any other questions from the Planning Commission? Board of Commissioners, any questions? Mr. Chairman?
Brandon Bowen. Yes, sir. I can hear you, yes. So it's a 10-year build-out for employees. We expect when it reaches full capacity, is it 68? 168 employees. And that, the salary at that point for all of them is expected to be about $14 million.
At the start, you showed locations of multiple other sites used by Old Castle. What would be the closest one?
Noonan is a fairly similar, older but similar product precast facility. I can give you we can get you the exact address.
About an hour from here.
Yes.
Think it'd be worth a visit by the board or the planning commission?
I visited and I thought it was helpful to me.
Last question. With our quarry, what's the longevity until you run out of aggregate?
I can't answer that question. Let me see if I can find someone who does. Who can? Do you know the answer to that?
It's supposedly over 100 years.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
100 years?
Yeah. That's all I had.
Any other questions from the Board of Commissioners? All right. No further questions from the Planning Commission. I will be moving on.
Well, I mean, just to ask one more, and not to complicate, now that I understand better that the 7 acres is just going to be primarily laydown yard.
Correct.
Okay, so you have 2 applications. If you did not get the rezoning for one, you still need the special use for the other to do the facility. Is that correct, Mr. Robinson?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Planning Commission? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll call you back if we have other questions, or you may have some time to rebut if there are questions that arise that are not from the commission.
Okay, thank you.
But hold on to that thought. I'm going to say that if there's anyone else here that wishes to speak on behalf of this application, they would be utilizing that time. So is there anyone here wishing to speak on behalf of this application at this time? Thank you. This time, I will move into anyone that may be in opposition to the application or may have questions, comments, or concerns. If you would like to speak, again, you need to come to the lectern, sign in, state your name, address your comments to the chair. If there's multiple people wishing to do so, please line up in an orderly fashion, and the speaker, please be mindful of those behind you to conserve time for them.
I'm Gloria Preston. I've lived right in Stonehenge subdivision, which is right there at the rock quarry. And for 20 years, I've dealt with the rock quarry, the blasting. I know when I bought the house. But my concern is, are they going to put an entrance on this 7 acres to go into that part? Or are they going to do the original entrance to where the rock quarry is? Plus the fact, the trucks that come down Mulberry Rock Road, they cut through Billy Bullock to get over to 120. We contend with those throwing rocks. I've been out there flagging, you do not come down this road. There's a sign that says nothing over 6 wheels come down this road. But my biggest concern is, what hours are they going to work? For years with the rock quarry, I have had the manager's number, called him at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, are you awake? I'm awake. They're working. So what hours are they going to work? You know, that's my biggest, the noise level. Y'all should have never gave permission for those subdivisions to be built there, the Georgian Park or my subdivision, in my opinion, because we have to contend with the rock quarry. But the truckers fly down Mulberry Rock Road. They have no concern. The students from the high school fly down the road too. But my thing is the noise level, what it's going to be, what hours are they going to work, and if there's going to be an entrance on that 7 acres. It's kind of confusing with the 7 acres. It's right in that curve, you know, where the church is. So is that going to be an entrance, or is it going to be the original rock quarry entrance, you know? But what hours are they going to work? I mean, everybody wants good sleep, you know? At 3 o'clock in the morning, even the rock quarry is working at 11 o'clock at the night. I want to know if there's a stipulation on the hours they're supposed to work. They were over there moving stuff at 11 o'clock at night. I guess that's my biggest concern, is what noise level the condition of the road is going to be in. Is it going to be big tractor trailer trucks to move this stuff out? You know, is it going to tear up? We already got big potholes already. Is it going to tear up the road even more? So, you know, that's my biggest concerns. Is the noise level, what hours they're going to work, if they're going to maintain the road, if they tear it up. Are we going to hear the big, whatever they move these big things with on the trucks? Is that going to be going all during the night? I just want a stipulation on the hours that they do work, if they do it, you know, for that reason. So, but I just think our subdivision, the Georgia Park, which backs up to the rock quarry too, they, you know, they have concerns, so.
Thank you for your comments.
Good afternoon. How are you doing? My name is Lawrence Miller. I'm a resident of Georgian Park for the last year and 3 months. Well, I was called. I've been in. Well, we have a group of people who were going to come, but they said that the 323 acres on the agenda was canceled. What her name? I forget her name, but I'm not going to pull out the notes. But they said it was canceled, so they didn't even come. But my concern is one of the questions I have is where they get the concrete from to build these things. So if they're getting it from APAC and they're going to pass it down the road and make this, but wherever the case might be, they have to get the concrete to build this monstrosity right here, and no one said where it's coming from. If you have concrete right there that's being made, it's like you make it right there. That's my common sense thing I'm saying. With that being said, that I talked to Jason this morning and I asked him that he had any, did he have any complaints given to him by APAC? He said no. And we all know that yes. So they're under the assumption that we don't have issues. I've talked to the fire marshal. They're investigating the situation. I've also talked to the insurance commission. They're also involved because somewhere, down the road, somewhere, no one's did the research in order to make sure these communities that's been built the last 25 years are protected from the damages that they have in their homes. And if they're building concrete at APAC for the old castle, that's one site, everything's done. And we have people here right now who has definitely experienced damage. And it's like it doesn't matter. to anyone. And I was wondering, did you guys let the builders know that 400 acres belong to industrial before you let them build there in the community? That's the question I have, because if they own all these acres industrial, there should have been something telling builders, okay, this is 320 some acres here, so just let you know, you building residential where industrial is, and it's coming because they bought the land, they just haven't got given permission to do anything with it. So now they're asking for permission to do it where homes has been built over 18 years, like mine, which has damage in the concrete, cracks in the drywall, everywhere, and we just looking around trying to ask for assistance, and I believe at this here and now, it's just the time to be sure that everything is in place to make sure nothing happens again or continue to happen to these residences, including mine. Spent $425,000 for my home last year with cracks in the ground, cracks in the drywall, and now we're building, potentially, Apex is supplying them with concrete to continue this blasting with no alleged legislation to protect us. So my question is, how are you going to help the community? We have schools in the area, we have parks in the area. It's concrete dust, there's a dust that comes off of concrete as well that can affect our communities. Is there additional research going to be done before you approve this particular project? Because I don't think the homework be done. I don't think the homework been done, because the questions that's being asked should not be questions being asked, they should be the answers. And so there's a lot more questions in depth that should be known and answers to before you guys approve this project, before it goes to our commissioners. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would sign in, please.
All right.
Okay. State your name and address your comments.
Christopher Height. I actually live right up against a rock quarry, and I've been there for 13 years. When I first started living there, you could not see or hear the rock quarry except for the occasional blast. Now, when I look out my back door, all I see is tractors and trucks. I bought my land out here because I wanted to be in the country. I wanted to live a peaceful, quiet life. That peace and quiet has disappeared. It has gone away. With the addition of a concrete plant, again, we're probably going to hear a lot about the 18-wheelers. I do have the same complaints as the lady before. The 18-wheelers run up and down. The rock quarry has a few dump trucks, some tandem trucks that run out there and all, but now we're talking about 18-wheelers full of big concrete cast parts. What is that going to do to our roads? Who is going to pay to fix the roads and stuff like that? Also, looking at the site drawing, right now, from Mulberry Rock, you really can't see because you got the tree buffer. According to the drawing, they're cutting all the trees down, so from Mulberry Rock, you're going to have nothing but industrial all the way back. There is no buffer no more. There is no more buffer for me either from where my house is to where the rock quarry is. My well has soured. I don't have well water no more. I had to hook to the city water. I had to run a line from the street all the way down. I've heard of other wells that have soured from construction and stuff. So there are some concerns that we all have with this, and just wanted to voice our concerns here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ashley Morris. I did sign in a while ago. And we live across the street. If you look at it, it's the odd-shaped parcel straight across. And we have several creeks on the property. So a few questions, has there been an environmental study? Noise pollution is big in the area. I know they said noise is not going to be an issue when I'm outside on our property. Even inside the house, you can hear the trucks running back and forth. The air pollution is a question that I have, as well as the water pollution. I know they're running electric equipment, however, all of that's going to be paved, so where is all the water going to go? We have creeks that run through our property, and I'm concerned about the runoff. The decrease in property value as well, and over time, they're saying heavy concrete, precast, I don't know what they're called, but that is going to tear up the road. It's going to land on the the taxpayers in the county to widen that road, to fix the road, to repave it. So these are all concerns that I have as well. And then my husband brought up a point, how much more aggregate is this going to cause the quarry to produce? If that, I don't know if that can be answered today, but you know, that's increasing the blasting. Things fall off my walls when some of these blasts happen. And I know of many other houses who have been affected as far as concrete, windows breaking, all of that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have 5 minutes remaining, so just, I'm trying to throw that out there so we can manage time. That's okay.
My name's Jonathan Sutliff. I did sign. And I own 2 lots directly across from the proposed area, and we've been out here about 1.5 years. He did a good job in presenting a nice, pretty picture of it, but let's unpack it a little bit. I've got 29 years' experience in the trucking industry. I'm familiar with Oldcastle. I've hauled freight for Oldcastle before. There's a severe demand for, when I say demand, the stress that will be put on the roads and that will put on the traffic congestion. That's a serious concern. It won't be little rocks that fall off the trucks that hit the windows. It's going to be these large concrete culverts that one of them that's misstrapped, one driver that comes in that doesn't work directly for them, they hire these truckers that may or may not be experienced. One time it comes out and it hits a car or a kid, you're going to have a problem. That's a serious concern for me. The traffic study, don't know that there's been one. The environmental studies, there needs to be some. Sediment will be a problem. I grew up in South Georgia. I don't know if you're familiar with Oil-Dry. It's a mining company. The roads are completely full of sediment. Sediment is slick. When it's wet, it causes accidents. So that's something to consider. You know, if there's a new entrance, has anyone done the study to see if it meets the requirements as far as the line of sight? There's a curve right before the church, which does have a school attached to it. And there's I don't know I think it's Billy Bullock Road. There's a dangerous intersection there. It's already dangerous. You start adding more trucks to that, going 45, 50 miles an hour. Yeah, they're not going to come out of the driveway at 45, but they are going to go into it at 45 or 50. So those are concerns. I'm really concerned about this. And it's not just about my property. It's about the neighborhood. It's about my neighbors. It's about the planned neighborhoods, something that needs to be considered. Thank you.
How much time do I have?
About 3 minutes.
My name's David Schmidt. I live at 1477 Billy Bullock Road. I will be able to throw a rock at that 7 acres from my house. My property value is going to be destroyed. We've already had numerous problems with the foundation, the sheetrock, all the other complaints they talked about. I was in the invasion in Iraq. I know quite a bit about explosives. I was sitting March 10th, 2017. I was sitting in my bed or my living room with my wife. I work evenings, and they blasted. And just like in a movie, I watched my back doors, my French doors, from where the side where the hinges are, roll out. Like in a movie where it liquefies the door and rolls it. That happened at my house. Whatever is supposed to be protecting all the residents from the blasting is not. We went. I called the cops, said, hey, what's going on? They said they didn't know. I went there and talked to them. They said the blasters used too much dynamite. That's what they told me. It knocked out the power to the road on that day. For us, it's obviously personal. I know people want to make money, but the quarry itself is already ruining people's lives. And now it's brought all of us together. We tried to go talk to them on an individual level with a lawyer. Some really weird things happen. I can't prove it. But now this has caused all of us to come together and meet each other. So instead of one person at a time, we got everybody. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. That does bring the 15 minutes for opposition and questions to a close at this point. I would ask or give the opportunity for the applicant if they would like to come back around. You do have about 5 minutes remaining from your time if you want to address anything, and then we'll be asking questions. We may pull others up depending on how the Planning Commission wants to proceed.
Okay, thank you. Just to answer some of the concerns I heard, and I tried to make a list as they were said. The question was whether or not there was going to be a roadway entrance on the 7 acres. The answer to that is no. The only expected entrance to that 7 acres would be from internal to the site so that they can get the precast equipment or precast product and lay it down until it's ready to be shipped out. I had a question about the entrance. Right now, there is an entrance on Mulberry Rock Road. We would expect to, and in fact, there's a condition that proposed by staff that would be reviewed by the county DOT during the permitting process, and we fully expect to comply with that. That's standard. There was a question about hours of operation. So normally, Old Castle uses a 12-hour shift, 12-hour day. We would expect to do that here as well. But the main thing I would reiterate is that because their processes are all interior to the building, it's just not a loud operation in that regard. There was a question about where is all the concrete going to come from. That goes back to why Old Castle wants to use this site. Most of the inputs into their product is going to come from the mine itself. So we're not having a whole lot of raw material coming to the site from the road. Most of it is the aggregate and the sand that is in the mine now. We're keeping that off the road. It's only leaving the site when it leaves as the finished product in the precast. There was a question about tree buffers. So I know that there's not trees shown on that site plan, but there would the existing buffer would remain in place. We've talked with staff about that, except where the entrance is, and that is something that would be addressed during the development review process. Let's see. There was a question about runoff. Obviously, runoff is, I live in Bartow County. It's hilly just like this area. Runoff is something we have to address, but that, again, is engineered through the development process, and we would expect to work with your staff in that regard. Question about roads. Again, as part of the development of this process, we're going to have to get approvals through the Paulding County DOT as far as making sure that the roads are adequate to serve this use, and we expect to comply with that. That's all I have. Be happy to answer any further questions that you might have.
All right. I appreciate the fact that you listened to the comments that were made during the opposition and questioning period and trying to address some of those. The time of operation, you stated that it's a 12-hour day, generally speaking.
That's how they operate currently, yes.
And I'm only asking this, I usually ask questions just so that we can eventually form whatever motion is going to be made. There's no guarantee, again, whether this would be a motion made favorable to the rezoning and SUP or detrimental to it. But would you be willing to stipulate the 12-hour operation, and which hours of the day are you talking about?
I don't know, as I said today, that I can stipulate the time. That's something I can investigate before it gets to the board of commissioners. I just don't know. I don't have authority to say that. Yeah, there is. Now, I will say
try
this.
to lean toward the mic again, just to make sure everybody can hear.
There is in the existing conditions, there's a time period of operations for pit operations. We're not planning to evade those at all.
Now, I will also say this, and this is aside from asking you questions, I'm going to go ahead and address this just so people understand. The function of the Planning Commission is to take a proposed use and determine whether or not this would be suitable for this area. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, that's what our function is. When it comes down to the particulars such as water runoff and how stormwater management is handled, or any of the other professional services that require an engineer or a planner to look at that, that would actually, assuming if this were to move forward with an approval, would still have to go before the Paulding County's plan review staff and meet their development regulation standards in order to move forward. So even if they received a approval from the Planning Commission and then subsequently it was approved by the Board of Commissioners, for them to actually move forward on any development on this, they have to bring it into compliance with development regulations. So just wanted to be very clear to you about what our function is. It is not to say what color the picket fence is going to be. It is to determine whether or not the proposed use is acceptable in this area. So at that point now, I'm going to turn it over to questions from Planning Commission. So, Mr. Steele.
Mr. Bowen, since the time question came up, and I saw the reaction when you asked, a 12-hour shift, is there two 12-hour shifts? Or is it one 12-hour shift?
No, that's one.
Lean into your mic.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. Just, yeah.
So the question that I asked was, on the 12-hour shift, is that just one 12-hour shift a day or two 12-hour shifts? Is it 24-hour operation? A gentleman spoke asking about trucking. Is the trucking times, I mean, are we picking up and delivering at midnight, 2 in the morning?
So my understanding is it's one 12-hour shift or 12-hour day, and the trucking would be during the day.
Okay. Any other questions from Planning Commission?
It seems to me like there should be some kind of parameter for the hours stipulated, and also on the noise. Is most of the noise inside of the manufactured building? And if so, how many decibels of noise does it make? Now, I think it's important to address the hours of operation because you've got the production facility inside the building, but you have equipment running outside the building in the lay down area and things like that. Is that true?
The only equipment that would be outside the building would be equipment that is placing the product, the finished product, on the laydown yard.
Yeah, so that makes noise. That makes noise, and the residents nearby can hear that noise. It's going which way the wind's blowing. It affects it, and so yeah, I think some kind of a parameter of operation it would be advisable on that because a 12-hour shift could be from 12 noon to 12 midnight, or I mean, I think that should be addressed, and I think you should think about agreeing to a stipulation for that.
I can certainly speak with my client about it.
Mr. Bowen, Mr. Carmichael earlier asked about visiting another plant. You said your closest plant was Noonan. What time of day could I go look at plant in Noonan? I mean, it has hours of operation of some sort.
I think during any business hours,
right,
we could do that. And I think we offer that up in our initial applications. We're happy to make anybody.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get to what Mr. Aston is asking is, give me some sort of time of when they operate in Noonan. I mean, that would at least answer my question for when they would want to operate here.
Yeah, it's an all-day operation.
Beginning at roughly daylight?
I don't know the hours of operation other than it's kind of like, my office is open to 8 to 5:30 or so.
What about a representative from Oldcastle sitting in the? Can they answer that?
If you would please come forward to the lectern.
Yes, so the hours of operation will depend on the capacity they need. Obviously, this plant will have small capacity at the beginning and will ramp up. Noonan also fluctuate depending on, but you can, and I don't want to say, because it depends on the location and depends on so many factors, and I'm not involved in Noonan, but we can certainly make it a stipulation, and we can certainly look at it. But there's not going to be night shipment. That's obvious, for obvious safety reason, and the plant will operate within sight of its confinement. Yes, there will be some electric forklift going outside, but I don't want to say anything about the hours of operation right now because I wouldn't know exactly when in time. So, but worst case scenario is 24 hours, but we certainly can do less than this depending on capacity.
And the quarry operates independent of what the proposed use of this property is, right?
Yes.
So operation of the quarry that may have been causing disruptions to people's sleep, conditions of their homes, damages that may be occurred, that is separate from what your planned operation is, although your operation may cause the quarry to be more active because you would be utilizing resources from the quarry to build, to create?
Right now, our goal is to offset what the quarry is selling to outside to keep it inside.
Okay.
That's our primary goal. So whatever aggregate truck leaves the quarry, we want to offset this. When somebody asks, where is the concrete coming from? Well, we make the concrete on site. That's the goal of all this. We bring the rocks and the sand from the quarry. We bake the cake. We make the batter on site. We put it in molds, and what comes out doesn't have any rocks, any dust. It's just those manholes and pipes. That's what's happening on the quarry.
Well, the demand on the quarry would be the same if you were on this side or if you were somewhere else purchasing it from the quarry.
That's what I was trying to establish. Yeah. What is the actual impact of being located there? It shortens trip time, but it's the same amount of material that's coming out that is not impactful to the quarry? Or is it impactful?
I see what you're saying, and I think
Mr. Chairman, I want to, this and what they've agreed to with the special use and the rezoning is prior stipulations. The quarry remains under the prior stipulations from 1989, and one of those stipulations is that no operation shall be permitted on Sundays, New Year's Day, Thanksgiving, or Christmas between the hours, and then between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., no pit operation shall be conducted, and the primary crusher should not be operated.
Okay.
Now, let me explain one thing. There's a provision in here. It says, provided, however, that if it's a state or county contract that requires nighttime work, these conditions will not apply to the operation.
Okay. All right. Okay, that did answer questions for me as far as the quarry goes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I do have answers to two other questions that
please.
were brought up. One of them is if when the two subdivisions were approved, the Georgian Park was April 2003 and Stonehenge was January 2004. And that developer, they did know that the quarry was next door.
They did or did not?
They did.
Did. Okay. Well, I will also say this. I know that even prior to the internet, Paulding County has always had an adopted zoning map that has been accessible to the public. You may have had, in the old days, come in and physically see it. Nowadays, you can pull it up online. So if you need to know where industrial property is in Paulding County, and also in the city of Dallas, they have their own version, city of Hiram as well. You can go online to find those resources, and I'm absolutely certain the developers were aware. You indicated that no roadway entrance from the road would be created, that you would be utilizing the existing entrance. Am I misunderstanding you?
if that's what I said, that's not
Okay, please.
Precisely. What I said is no direct access to the road to to that 7-acre portion.
To the 7-acre, okay.
Okay. There will be an access to this plant on Mulberry Rock Road
Okay.
as there is currently, and I think it's shown on the plat there, but that would be coordinated through your DOT office to get that permitted.
Right.
And one of your other stipulations is a traffic impact study. So that should address your number of trucks, heavy equipment, and just your average traffic coming in and out.
Correct.
Just so everybody knew that.
Are there any other questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission?
If y'all had a chance to meet with the surrounding citizens preceding this meeting?
I have not held a town hall or anything like that. No, sir. I've talked to some on the phone, but that would be it.
What about back to the hours of operation? I mean, do y'all offer or any kind of hours of operation or any kind of parameter of operation? I mean, doesn't have to be exact, but no earlier than or no later than. Do y'all offer anything on that?
Well, you heard just what I just heard from Mr. Vigno, but what I can say is I think we're open to that, and let us go back and make sure we can say something that we can stand by, and I will submit that in writing to your staff prior to the Board of Commissioners meeting.
If the Planning Commission so chooses, if in the process of this consideration of this application, you decided you wanted to add a stipulation, you could do so. That stipulation can be refined or amended or struck altogether by the Board of Commissioners if they choose to at that point. So if that is something you wish to do, just enumerate that amongst the existing stipulations. Any other questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission? Board of Commissioners? Ms. Galloway?
I noticed here that stipulation 2 is about light fixtures and light, which is good. We do that on most things now that are anywhere near a neighborhood. But also I wondered, I didn't see a stipulation about any kind of sound barrier or, in other words, a barrier can mean a lot of things, right? Sometimes it's a few scrawny trees, sometimes it's really thick and really stops the noise. And I just wondered if there might be any interest in adding a stipulation concerning noise there or noise abatement for the sake of these neighborhoods around here.
That can be something that if any of the Planning Commission want to entertain. I do know that without doing a study of decibel level at an existing plant, it's hard to determine what the baseline of noise should be or would be. So if there's a development regulation within the county's regs that addresses that, it can be stipulated that it must stay below that during hours of operation, and maybe even follow along with what Mr. Aston has stated as far as trying to set a parameter for operation to 12 hours over daylight. I don't know how best to do that. I mean, we can attempt it. Any other questions from the Board of Commissioners?
I'll just comment, we do have noise ordinances in place now. Is it unincorporated? Yeah.
Everything that we deal, just to cut through all of that, everything that we deal with at the county level is unincorporated. City of Hiram does basically subscribe to the development regs of Paulding County. Dallas has their own, but it is up to those authorities to enforce. Now, within unincorporated Paulding, it's up to Paulding County's authorities to enforce, which would be the marshals as far as code violations.
And speaking to Chairman Carmichael's comment, I haven't looked at the noise ordinance because this frankly is just not a noisy use. I'm not concerned about it. But that said, we'll comply with the ordinances of the county. We're going to have to.
And I understand the concern that's being voiced as well, because, you're talking about a process or a product that you're going to put on the ground. Nobody in the area they may be familiar with it, may not be familiar with it, they may not have a concept of what kind of noise you consider to be small amount versus what they're accustomed to. Of course, it sounds like they're accustomed to quite a bit from the quarry. So,
Fair point.
no more questions from the Planning Commission or Board of Commissioners, then we'll go ahead and move forward.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to make one comment from another question that came up, or a comment that was made. There was a comment about some misinformation on the agenda, if this was withdrawn or not. Our agenda remained online with all the applications as per state records, or state requirements, and our local ordinance requirements based on the Zoning Procedures Act and our ordinance. That was all posted, was advertised, and I will say we did receive an email yesterday asking for a copy. We sent a link. By that time, we knew one was withdrawn. We sent the case number, that it was the one I announced earlier, to that inquiry of which case was not going to be on there anymore, which is very clear. And no time was this ever put on our information that this case would withdraw. I don't know how it got misled out there on social media.
Well, we have the gentleman behind you is the one saying he was the recipient, so at the end of the meeting, you can discuss with him if he so chooses. So at this time, we will move forward with consideration of both the applications, the rezoning application 2024-10-Z. I will need a motion on that with any consideration of the existing stipulations. There's 6 in this particular one, and any additional stipulation you wish to add. Then for application for the SUP, which is 2024-04-SUP, with the 7 listed stipulations that are a part of that application recommended by staff. So at this time, floor is open on the initial rezoning application, 2024-10-Z. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion, we table it till the applicant has a chance to speak with these concerned citizens, possibly have a meeting. And we need parameter of hours of operation. And I'd like to see that addressed up at Mulberry Rock Road. I know there's existing trees there now, but I'd like to see that buffer widened where there would be a better protective buffer from the new development.
So we are looking to table, you're making a motion to table this application for consideration. Do you want to say to the following Planning Commission meeting?
To the following Planning Commission meeting.
Give me a calendar date on that, Mr. Robinson, if you would.
It'd be April the 23rd.
April 23rd. So we have a motion to table from Mr. Aston to April 23rd's Planning Commission meeting, with the hope that the applicant will meet with residents to discuss the development and address the buffer concerns, as well as the presented hours of operation. That is something that we can consider as a potential stipulation. Is there a second to that motion? Did I catch all of that? Have a second from Mr. Steele. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0 and 1. I forgot how many I was counting. It was, okay, hold on. Who voted in favor of the tabling? So I have 2 here, 3 here. That's 5-0 and 1. And then one abstention from Mr. I'm sorry, thank you. Good way to label it. So we have 1 abstention, well, 2 abstentions, that's right. Okay. And then we have the second application. I guess we need to go through that formally as well, 2024-04-SUP. Similar to the last, to April 23rd. Okay, so we have a motion to table for the same reasons to the April 23rd Planning Commission by Mr. Aston.
Can we add a stipulation to that for the SUP portion?
Yes.
The
Usually you add the stipulations when you're going to approve, but if you're wanting to
Well,
add consideration.
Because I'm in agreement that a tabling of the application so that we can get additional information. But for the SUP portion of the actual laydown lot around the precast facility, the traffic study, impact study, it would be nice to have some information off of that impact study to know what our traffic pattern and would be in that review. But I don't know if that's something we would be able to have before that or not.
And generally that's done in anticipation for submitting for plan review, but you can stipulate that and see where they can go with it.
Well, we can ask staff how long it typically takes. Mr. Jones, I mean, when we get impact studies for others, how long does it generally take for engineering firms to complete those?
Again, it depends on the scope, number of intersections, collecting data. I mean, it could be done in as soon as 30 days if you expedite it. It could take more like 60 or 90 again. But like I said, I do agree it does help to have that information up front when you're making the decision.
So, and again, your prerogative, he's made the motion, you would like to amend the motion to add that stipulation for the consideration?
That is correct.
Just to be accurate, you have a motion with no second.
I have a motion with no second.
So if he wants to withdraw the motion and add the stipulation, that's his prerogative, but you have no second right now, so there's not a motion to amend.
So decision's up to you at this point. If you
I'll withdraw the motion and make an amendment to the motion and add what Mr. Wick stated to that motion.
So the motion is being made to table until April 23rd's Planning Commission or at such time that the traffic study can be ready for us to consider.
My recommendation is you
60.
table it to a date certain, requesting a traffic study.
So,
April 23rd.
okay. We'll go with that and address it at the time.
And I think you need a second.
We do.
A second.
Second for Mr. Wicks. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0 and 2. So this will be forwarded to next month's meeting. Applicant will need to be present for it to be considered. Again, the actions that have been requested by Planning Commission, you need to pursue those if you wish to see this move forward. I will give everyone a minute, if you're not interested in the final topic, to leave. If you want to stay, you're more than welcome, but we're going to begin with the next discussion item.
Came up with a second word, too. I'll tell you later.
Director Lippman?
I'll go ahead and read it.
All right, Chris.
Okay, next item is a zoning ordinance text amendment. So we need a public hearing. The Paulding County Planning Commission Board of Commissioners will consider zoning ordinance text amendments to Title I Administration, Title II Zoning, and the appendix of the Unified Development Ordinance for Paulding County, Georgia.
Thank you.
I'm happy to bring to you today what will be the 7th edition of our Unified Development Ordinance and our 6th Amendment. I will go chronologically in order rather than the order that everything got started. So starting with changes to Title I administration, we are in the process of trying to finalize the development regulations section, which will be Title III. And in working on that and looking at Title I, the administration, we saw a few things that we wanted to go ahead and update since we had a text amendment advertised. We're just making some clarifications in Title I, making sure that we're clear that the Environmental Health Office is called Environmental Health now. It used to just be called the Health Department. We added some, we're giving the Community Development Director some authority to make some non-substantive changes. Microsoft likes to help you out every once in a while, and they'll number things for you, and so numbers get out of whack, and every once in a while you might see a typographical or grammatical error. This was an idea we got from another county, so this would give us the authority when we see things get out of the right number, or page numbers messed up, or a typographical error, to just correct those, and of course we'll keep a running list of those. In section 100-90, we wanted to include reference to the soil erosion, sedimentation, and pollution control ordinance as it relates to re-inspection fees during the development process. And we made a correction to section 100-90.06, striking reference to certificate of occupancy and referencing the way we had it worded looked like we record final plats for developers. That is actually something they are required to do and pay for, and provide us with a copy of that recorded plat. So we wanted to make that clarification. I believe at the meeting in January, we had mentioned a change regarding riding stables in the agricultural business district. Staff looked at that, and rather than change the entire district, we wanted to make riding stables a special exception use with a minimum lot size of 5 acres. Which that takes us into, we did a lot of changes to section 230-30, special exception use. The main change that we did, this was a new use to us when we adopted the Unified Development Ordinance in 2022. And we did not have a sunset provision where you're required to submit that you meet all the requirements, but we didn't have, what if you don't start it? So we put in provisions similar to a special use permit that you either have to get a building permit within 1 year or prove that you've established the use. Like in the case of backyard chickens, you don't get a building permit, you just go get chickens. So we made that addition, and staff and planning and zoning, when we did the special exception section, in some districts there's a use that's a permitted use in B2, GC, B2, yeah. But it might be a special exception use in O&I, and so we would just put O&I. Staff pointed out that it would be very helpful if every special exception use in that chapter had the zoning district that it was a special exception use in. So the only change we made was just to add a list of all the zoning districts to all of our special exceptions uses. That was a fun exercise, but it is now done. The reason we initiated this text amendment was to make a few changes to Chapter 280, which is about the Planning Commission. In my memo, I had referenced a requirement of electric submittal. We have taken that out of the tax parcel numbers, so you can strike that part. We corrected the reference made on the secondary zoning notice sign to allow the Board of Commissioners consider all constitutionally permissible zoning classifications, site-specific conditions. There was a number, the numbers got out of whack, so we needed to reserve sections 280-50 through 280-70 and note those as reserved so that the correct section of 280-80 is listed. So we just reserved those two sections. We added a section that was in our previous ordinance regarding if an application is denied, that it can't be resubmitted for 12 months. That was just simply omitted in one of our edits. And we noted a section in 280-80.03F regarding reversion of zoning if right-of-way was stipulated in a zoning case. It stated that if it wasn't given to the county in 90 days, that we would begin reversion amendments and talking with DOT. We don't think that's a very short period of time, so we have currently changed it to 12 months, and we may change that further with future edits. And our last edit is to the appendix. Our last edit is to the inactivated PRD zoning district. Just a little history on PRD. Chris had done some research in December for the State of the County address. We have over 30,000 lots that have been zoned PRD during the time that PRD was an active zoning district. 14,149, this is in December, have been platted. 13,000 of those have houses on them. So if you're doing some quick math in your head, you'll notice that there's more lots that haven't even been developed than there are platted or have a house on them. So we are recommending at this time 2 changes to the PRD zoning district. We are requesting to add building material or building design requirements for anything that comes in. This mirrored what we had in the senior development section of the PRD zoning district. This would require homes to be constructed of traditional design, I'll just read it, with brick, stone, masonry, horizontal siding, and masonry, shakes, and shingles. Brick and or stone shall constitute no less than 70% house front and sides of the materials used, with accents of masonry siding and shakes / shingles for each building elevation. Building standards must incorporate the building standards listed below. Also, color elevations of the front, sides, rear of all typical units, including proposed exterior building materials, building heights, and any other structures shall be submitted to the Community Development Department to be reviewed for compliance prior to issuance of building permits. The 5 characteristics that need to be incorporated into all building design is A, side entry garage, B, covered porch entry or a covered front porch, C, a roof with a pitch greater than 8 to 12 and a minimum overhang of 12 inches on all sides, D, hip or gable roof lines, and E, front stoops and or steps made of rock, brick, marble, or other material as approved by the Community Development Department. I will be honest, and I would like to strike marble, because on a day like today, I do not want to be walking on marble steps to get inside my house. So if no one has an objection, we will strike marble from that. For PRD, we also would like to add enhanced buffer requirements. This section is mirroring what was in the low-density quality residential development and requires a 25-foot buffer to be planted around the entire property. It was 15, so this would be an increase, and it also has 20-foot wide, no access, easement be required along the right-of-way of arterial and collector streets. And I think that is everything that we have today. If anybody has any questions or comments, James, go for it.
So that everybody knows, I did speak with Ms. Lippman about one of these earlier. The one she just finished under building design, there's A through E, and there's a few of those that I personally think we need to maybe go more in depth on. And more define. Let me give you an example. C, a roof with a pitch greater than 812 and minimum overhang of 12 inches on all sides. The roof pitch issue will come in when you design the houses, front porches, typically of the houses that we see today, and that I design and other designers design and build. There are aspects of that house where there's things like your rear covered porches, your front porches, other ones that can't use anything 812 or greater because it would get into the windows, or it would be too steep, or would create a funny looking architectural characteristic on the front of the house. So that the 812 is a very common one, and the way this is worded is a roof pitch greater than 812. So that would force us to 912s, 1012s, 1212s. those work on the front elevations and the front gables, but they don't work as well from front to back on the main gables of the houses. And when we designed those trusses and those gables, the pitches fluctuate the heights, which when the trusses are built and shipping can force the trusses to be over 12 feet tall, which doesn't allow us to ship them without doing something called a cap or a piggyback, where it's two separate trusses. So you'll see a lot of people use, 912, 1012, 1212 on the front gables that you see from the road looking at the facade, but not necessarily in the back. So a change there would be 812 or greater on fronts, in my opinion, and then maybe reduce that to a 712 or 612 main pitch. Just some thoughts I think that maybe we should look at. In that same thing, the hip or gable, we should probably add shed also, because shed's used a lot in your dormers and your craftsman style layback dormers. Shed's used a lot in your rear covered porches. Shed is a very common roof line that we use. Hip and gable is very common. We use that a lot. So the front stoops with the marble, rock, brick, I agree. We don't really use marble. The rock and brick, I think what the intent here is for what you see. But it really doesn't define if it's the face, the facade, or if it's the surface area you stand on. So I think there could be some more detail here that if we have time between now and when this is voted on by the board in 2 weeks, that could we possibly look at this a little more in depth?
Happy to have your expertise and to help. I think that the overhang, that could probably be a separate criteria that could just reference eaves alone, and the hip and gable could probably go with the roof into one. We could split that up.
Right.
But I'm happy to work with you to prepare some alternate criteria for this building design.
The side entry garage, it doesn't really say where it's located on the house. Most garages we're building are on the front, but rear loaded stuff, it could be in the back. If you did a rear loaded product in this zoning and you put it on the back, you wouldn't necessarily need side entry. So I think there's some clarification there, and I would hope that you guys would, y'all know what I do and that I deal with this. The buffer requirements, that part I have no comment on. Can I go back into two other ones?
Sure.
Okay, since we're there. One of the early ones you talked about was a soil erosion sedimentation failure of inspection and a fee. Is that new?
We just want to clarify. There's been a fee charged. I'll be honest, this section, we based our UDO on what Gwinnett County does, and I'm pretty sure we copied it without thinking, hey, is this what we do? So we didn't reference. We realized that we put in the fee section of the Unified Development Ordinance that was going to govern all development. We put in re-inspection fees for building permits, but we omitted it for development inspections and permits. So that authority would come from the Soil and Erosion Control Ordinance. So we just wanted to kind of put those two together.
Okay. That is on probably your second or third page. 100-90.04. Yeah, and again, I was just trying to clarify. I'm sure I failed one, but I don't recall if I've had to pay a reinspection fee on erosion control. And I really was looking.
You've done a good job. If you've never had a visit to the principal's office and had a meeting with Bruce Coyle, then you've done a good job.
Yeah, I'm sure I failed. But I don't recall the reinspection fee. That was and then the only other thing I noticed in this, and I called Mr. Robinson, was on 230-30.01, number 2C. And it was just a little unclear where it says, we're basically saying about the accessory structures and their use, and it looks like it exempts it from ER, R1, and R2 unless the lot is 3 acres or larger. It's a little, doesn't make sense to me, because those are the zoning categories where we see a lot of those accessory structures, detached garages, buildings, sheds.
And this is probably another, if the planning commission would still give us a recommendation for this text amendment, I agree in looking at this, that the wording is for lack of a better word, janky.
Clunky.
This is one, yeah, clunky works too. This is one, this is all existing except for we added ER and R1, and I think in our effort to just stick ER and R1 in there, we did a poor job. So we would love to be able to have the opportunity to revise that so that it makes better sense.
I'm all for it.
That's which one, 230?
230-30.01.
The very first special exception use, accessory structures.
Under number 2.
And this is one, it was mentioned in every zoning district. It was the same in every district except for A1. And I think this was an effort to be able to include so that we could list an accessory use for all districts. So I think there'd be an easy fix to make that, bring
Okay.
clarity to that.
And back to that building design real quick, the 1-20.02 building design, that's under the detached product or under your typical PRD, but the following page is the similar building design standards for the
That is for
senior
the
living.
senior detached residential
Are
dwellings.
we gonna look, can we look at that one too and see if, I mean, should they be
Sure.
similar? Okay.
Sure.
Because the only thing I saw there was like the 812 also.
But we do not have anyone who elected to do the senior living detached residential dwelling in PRDs.
Okay.
We have one that opted to do senior, but they did not avail themselves of these requirements. So if anyone in one of the existing, and Jason, chime in if I'm going down the wrong road, if anyone wanted to opt to do one of the existing PRD zone properties as senior living detached residential dwelling, they would have to come back to the planning commission to get a site plan stipulation.
Well, and that may lead also to my next question for Mr. Phillips. If this is adopted in 2 weeks, the sunset that we were speaking of earlier, where do these become vested? Like, where is a PRD that's currently out there? What are we classifying vested? If I have one that's under construction and I'm moving dirt and I have a land disturbance permit, I would assume that's vested. But if I own a piece of property that I'm looking at and I don't own it, I wouldn't think that's vested.
But still, I get nervous when anybody ever asks for a bright line on what's vested and what's not. In the scenario that you put up, if you're moving dirt, you got various permits, you're vested. You got raw land and nothing's happened to it, you're probably not vested.
Okay.
And where that line is between those two things is determined by some factors put forth in the courts. And the good thing about it is that we have to look at every one of them individually to see whether some action has occurred that the court would recognize as having been vested. But in your 2 examples there, I think that those are on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Okay.
It's a broad line.
Yeah, real fat line.
Any other questions from the planning commission? Sorry, I'll speak into the mic. Board of Commissioners, any questions? We'll open up public comment shortly.
I don't so much have a question, but I would like to underscore how very important the board and the previous board makeup wants to get this right. And I'm thankful to Ann for the time that her team is spending on it. But addressing James' concerns and any other concerns on the planning commission, we want to get this right. As much time as it takes, we want it to be usable and correct.
Well, I think is evidenced by this is already the UDO is barely 2 years old, and this is already our 6th amendment. So, second one this year. So we have no problem, once we have the proper notice, to run a legal ad and do the work to get it up to date. And we hope to very soon have a draft of Title III available for public to review.
Mr. Wicks, you have a question?
I guess so. With Mr. Steele's comments and the point of Chairman Carmichael, if we've got some concerns or we've got additional comments to try to make this right, would we want to table this to be able to bring back, to be able to review it again before it goes to the Board of Commissioners for vote, So that way we can address any of those potential comments, you know, and have an opportunity to see some of these revisions actually put into place. That way we can make sure that they're captured, because then we have an opportunity to review them again before they actually go, just to make sure that there is not an opportunity for something to fall through the crack or something, so that we can have that.
I would just ask that if there's sections you're fine with, to let those go forward. Like, we would really like to get that error corrected about not allowing a denied, the revisions to Chapter 280, that if you're denied, if y'all make a recommendation of denial, or if you don't, and it goes to the Board of Commissioners and they deny it, that was just an omission that should not have been omitted, that says you can't apply for 12 months. So if the only thing that you're concerned about is, if you're not concerned about that, and if you're not concerned about putting a sunset in for special exception, you're just concerned about getting the changes to the PRD right, don't kill the whole text amendment for that. That's the only thing I would ask. And I would think that in 2 weeks, we could get something probably even quicker than that, and even get it back to you guys to take a look at. I don't think it's a major substantial change. I think it's just putting some more clarity on what's realistic. Because James referenced the single family detached, or the senior dwelling housing requirements, and a lot of people have heard me joke, because one of them was bay or bow windows, and you could pick 5 out of the 10, and I'd love to joke that 1986 called and it wants their bay windows back, because I just don't think bay windows are where it's at here in 2024. So I don't think giving people that choice, because a bay window is a significantly cheaper housing choice than a certain type of roof, and if we're trying to get to the look we're getting to.
And some of you may have a bow window and not know what it is.
Or a Palladian window. Yeah. I think that's also very 80s. You probably had some mauve draperies that went with your Palladian window.
Now, if your window's bowed, that's a whole nother problem.
Well, I don't hear anyone here wanting to necessarily kill the amendment. I think making sure that what was captured in discussion here as potential edits is the main concern, and if that can be done through simple discourse today, that's fine. I mean, it's up to the Planning Commission to make that recommendation, and we still have public comment to get to, which I think will be rather light.
And I also had a question about the accessory structures, if there was a minimum or a maximum that could be allowed in some of these areas, because, you know, that might.
As far as size or quantity, or both?
Yeah, as far as size or quantity.
Okay.
That might alleviate some of the problems we're having with all of these storage facilities coming in to the county. If people have a little bit of an area that they can have some storage or some type of deal like that. I don't know, that's one of the questions, and one of the things that.
Can I give you an example of what I run into?
Yes.
So constantly building houses for individuals, they're always looking for storage, especially if it's a slab house. So they will either ask me how much it is to build an accessory storage building for them, and we'll go over that, or they will price ones at Home Depot. But I know that Ms. Lippman's office has certain sizes that you don't have to.
If it's below, I believe it's 120 square feet, you don't need a permit.
Okay. Because more of them choose the option to buy the Home Depots or the Costco ones, or.
As long as they stay under the 10 by 12, then.
They're supposed to.
Okay.
But over that, there are requirements that they're supposed to follow.
Totally.
And setbacks,
Think in
and,
our
you know.
efforts to push it together. We do think that in the previous ordinance that there was a limit, a size limit, and we could look in our old copy and reincorporate that. What was it, Chris?
1,000 square feet per acre.
I was fixing that. Like I say, 1,000 not big enough, but per acre makes it better.
So if you had 3 acres, you could have 3,000 square feet.
Because you would be amazed at the people who come in and they use the barndominium concept, or, you know, they want a 12,000 square foot garage with a 1,200 square foot house.
So if we have a direction to go, I think first I need to open up for public comment just to be consistent with the public hearing that we're having. So at this time, I will open the floor to any public comment. Seeing no movement, I will close the door on the public comment portion. And then we can consider a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners regarding the text amendment to capture the edits that have been discussed here. I can't enumerate them, I'll be honest with you. I would either leave it to Mr. Steele if he wants to call them all out, or...
I'll try. I mean, I would make a motion to move the amendment forward to the next board meeting, but allowing staff to communicate with us on the building design section 1-20.09.
Need a second?
The accessory amendment to clarify C of number 2 of 230-3001.
I would just say the accessory structures, they're not numbered, so that we can keep them and just sort them in alphabetically. So I would just say edit the entire accessory structures and use the special exception use. Clarification.
And then you want to go to the section regarding the roof pitch?
I got
That's
it,
part of
building
that?
design.
Okay. And we're good with having that captured? Okay. And I had a second from Mr. Leggett as far as recommendation for approval to the Board of Commissioners. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0 and 1. Got my math right on that one. So thank you for your patience and time. Staff of the county as well, thank you. At this time, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Yes, sir.
If I may have a opportunity just to address
My
something
apologies,
that's
I
on the
forgot.
horizon. Commission members, I wanted you to be aware that before the Board of Commissioners today is a proposed ethics ordinance amendment. And the reason I'm taking the time right now to tell you about it is it's just in draft form, but it's on the agenda for consideration for approval tonight. The reason I'm mentioning it to the 6 of y'all, 7 of y'all, is that it is going to impact your ethical obligations in hearing rezoning applications. So I'm going to explain it to you in a nutshell. If there is a rezoning application, a special use permit application, a land use permit application, or a medical hardship application that comes in front of y'all for consideration and recommendation, and if one of y'all owns the property that is the subject of the application, or you're owner of an LLC or some corporate entity that owns the property, or an immediate family member, to include in-laws, owns the property. And finally, if you own property within 1,000 feet of the property that's under consideration, then in that circumstance, you will be disqualified from debate or voting on the matter. What will happen is that this is going to stress the importance of, not that you don't, but it's just going to reemphasize the importance of, you need to be looking at your application certainly in advance of this meeting to make sure that there's not an application from which you're disqualified. If you do find yourself disqualified, you need to send a notice to the Community Development Director, to Ann, advising her that you're disqualified. And when Chris calls the case, at that point in time, let's say that Mr. Steele was disqualified. Mr. Steele would then exit the door on the call of that case, and he would come back out to the public area and not participate. The idea in the policy rationale is there's transparency. There's a conflict, there's a disqualification, and so he's removing himself from the purview of any of the public believing that he has any official or unofficial say-so as to what happens in the recommendation cast by the remaining group up there. Now, having said that, under a holding of the Georgia Supreme Court, if Mr. Steele owns that property that he's disqualified from, he's removed himself from the dais, he's come down here, he does have the opportunity under existing Georgia law to either apply for that rezoning himself or be in opposition to the rezoning. The Georgia Supreme Court has said that a disqualified commission member retains the rights and privileges that an ordinary citizen would have in a rezoning matter. So he'd be able to take the podium and say whether he was for or against it, and then he would remain out here with the rest of the citizens until your deliberation recommendation is done, and once the vote is cast, he would then return up to the dais to be a participant in the remaining matters. So that's the proposal. It's a draft ordinance. It's up for consideration tonight. My suspicion is my suspicion. I don't suspect. I have every confidence that it's going to pass, but it's not approved until there's a majority vote, and that will be considered tonight. Happy to try to answer any questions that y'all may have, but I just want you to be aware of this, because if it does pass tonight, it'll be in effect at your next meeting.
Since Mr. Steele was the example, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So anything that I would own or be adjacent to, I mean, I've always felt that way, that ethically I shouldn't participate. Where's the 1,000 feet come from?
1,000 feet is it is a number that certainly more than adjoining. We figured that that was a good number that we could latch onto, saying, hey, everybody, you know, is it 500 feet? Is it 1,000? Is it 750, 784? 1,000 feet we felt was a doable number that we can quickly calculate using GIS on the tax assessor's site from the property line. Just this morning we had one where a question came up, would it be a disqualifier? And we were able to quickly determine that the distance was about 1,300 feet, so it wouldn't disqualify. 1,000 is distance-wise what we believe is a reasonable amount. Some areas they thought about, oh, what about 1 or 2 miles? That's too far. All right, you'd be disqualified from just about everything. But we wanted to put a distance in place that the citizenry would view as a reasonable distance.
Right.
And it doesn't apply in the case of a text amendment. Just to be clear, text amendments affect all of us. Doesn't matter where we live.
Okay. And the 1,000 feet would be radial from any point of the property's boundary.
Edge of the applicant's property.
Okay.
Straight line. It's not door to door like alcohol. It's
right.
Straight line distance.
It might be refreshing to be amongst the audience.
I would enjoy you taking the podium and rendering your opinion.
Yeah, I'll know which way to direct conversation. Yeah.
I have a question regarding that. So that only applies to us for personal property, for
Yes.
me as a person.
Yes.
So the question that I would have would be, as a delegate from the school system, would I be required to recuse myself from a property 1,000 feet away from a school property? Or is this just for Jacob Wick's personal owned property?
It's a great question. I'm glad I thought of it about 2 hours ago or an hour ago when I saw you sitting up there. It's only going to be from your personal investments, personal ownership. The role that you are in, you are there in that role for the very reason that you are with the school district. And so when a zoning application comes up that may impact the school system, whether that's next door or 3,000 feet away, you're there to represent the opinions of the school district as to what the school district believes should happen in that regard, regardless of geographic distance.
I figured as much. I just want to clarify.
Sure. No, that's a great question. I mean, other questions, similar questions would come up. For instance, the city of Hiram, what if it's within X number of 1,000 feet of the city? That's none of that makes a difference. It's personal ownership and corporate ownership.
So is that going to be different than where we would recuse ourselves, like Mr. Leggett recused himself earlier in one today? Like, let me give you an example. There is one coming for a rezoning that I had under contract at one time and I let go, but I did the design on it. I no longer have any affiliation with it myself. But if it shows up, I still feel like I'm going to recuse myself because that layout may be mine. And I may still be able, at some point, if it came for sale, I may buy it. But me personally, ethically, I think I should step away from that one. And that's the way I feel about it.
There are, the amendment that I'm speaking about today is only in regard to ownership or the distance qualifier.
Okay.
The issue that you put up, that you portrayed there are other components of the ethics ordinance that may arise to a disqualification, and that, that potentially has one. We'd have to look at it more in depth, but that is not the subject of this proposed amendment.
Okay.
And the reason I abstained today, and I haven't discussed with any of you, was the fact that in 2018, when I was not on the board, or Old Castle at that time did not own that property, but they did in 2018 buy a group of wagons, about 150 wagons, and donated them all over the country, through their system. But I still felt that it was an issue that I should not, have voted on that particular application. And that's the reason I did it. It was my personal feeling for doing that.
And one of the important things that's going to be a part of this process is for y'all to send that notice in writing by email. It's an email in advance. What you don't want to do is the case gets called and about 10 minutes into it, you realize you have a conflict. Do what you have to do in that situation, but hopefully you get it all done ahead of time so the public doesn't see you stepping away halfway through. Thank you.
I think it's commendable, so.
I got a quick question.
Yes.
And this is, you may have addressed this, I can't remember if you did or not, but on the 1,000 feet, take for instance, Mr. Palmer there's a zoning notice out there that could affect him. Who's responsible for saying where the 1,000 feet? Is it upon us to say, hey, that's 1,200 feet, so it's not mine, and then somebody from the county comes in and says, no, it's 1,000? In other words, whose responsibility is it for that measurement?
I would say, well, it raises two things. One, it is your responsibility to identify the conflict at the initial point. Staff is not going to be running parcels to see who's conflicted around those parcels, simply because that would be too onerous of an obligation for them to do. Second part of that is, if you identify that you may have a conflict, get with Chris or get with Ann, and we can get that through the tax assessor's office, through the Q Public site. They've got a ruler function where we can just plop a point down from the edge of the property, drag it out 1,000 feet, and see if it's hitting your property.
That's what I was trying to get to.
And that's generally accurate too. I use the same tool in my job, so.
Yeah, so it's ultimately it's going to be property line to whatever your property is, and hopefully we won't have a situation where somebody says it's less than 1,000 or it's 1,200. We'll amend it if that happens.
Well, I think most of us know when we look at our packets ahead of time, hey, that's close to me, my personal resident, or that's close to something. No, they're right behind you, yeah.
All right. Any other questions before we close out?
Mr. Phillips, what all boards does this apply to?
It's a great question. Best we can tell at this point, Board of Commissioners, Planning Commission, because it is styled as dealing with rezoning applications, special use permits, land use permits, and medical hardships. Those are, I believe, and I could be wrong on this, but we believe that the two of you, these two boards are going to be the only one handling that type of a case. Now, our general ethics ordinance, and that includes many other prohibitions and conflicts of interest, that applies to all county appointed boards.
Give an example of that, please.
If you have what's defined as a substantial interest is typically a monetary interest of $5,000 or more in an entity that may have an application before the Development Waiver Review Committee, or who knows, maybe it's the Animal Control Hearing Board because your dog bit somebody. It's a variety of things, but those are going to be other examples. You've got your county ethics ordinance, which enumerates numerous situations where you may have a conflict of interest or a prohibition. For instance, in the Georgia Supreme Court case that I referenced, the commissioner stepped away and I think was either adamantly opposed or adamantly in favor of the rezoning application. And the court said that commissioner can take the podium and voice their opinion. They have that right. But what that commissioner could not do is lurk in the back hallways talking with staff that the general public is not going to have access to, and give their opinion or their pressure as to what that staff member should do, for instance, in coming up with a proposed stipulation. Those types of activities would be prohibited by our existing conflict of interest law, conflict of interest ordinance, because you're using your position to get access that the general public doesn't already have.
Can you see any impact from the Board of Education or Mr. Wick seeing any connection where you might need to recuse yourself? You already asked the question about whether it's personal or not. But have you seen any cases, school system cases, where it might apply?
Not in the vested interest aspect of the monetary side of it, but if there would have been that 1,000-foot buffer, there would have been several that we would have had an issue with.
And again, that's not the intention of this. It's similar to, and I'll stop talking here in a minute. Sometimes I've been asked in the past, this planning commission handles recommendations for the city of Hiram. And the issue has come up, hey, I'm the city of Hiram's representative. This is a city of Hiram rezoning application. Do I need to recuse myself? And the answer is absolutely not. You're on the planning commission in your capacity of representing the city of Hiram. You're here to bring their voice as to what they want to see regarding a zoning application that is involving the city of Hiram. So it's almost the exact opposite situation. Not only are you not conflicted, nor are you disqualified, you're here because of the unique position you occupy in bringing that input for the rest of the commission or the board to consider.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for that information. Of course, I have the highest regard for my associates up here. I believe that they all will abide by that and always have striven to do that. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr.
Second.
Callahan, second by Mr. Leggett. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0 and 1. We are adjourned. Have a great rest of your month.